Now, the program to help you and your family get fit and stay fit with a biblical foundation without a one-size-fits-all plan. It's Faith Family Fitness with your host, Full Armor Sports and national champion coach, Jason Lupo.
Welcome to Faith Family Fitness on 100.7 The Word. Today we're going to be talking about some international events going on. The World Cup started last weekend, and with the World Cup brings a ton of different issues to the forefront, especially this World Cup when we talk about human rights stuff, when we talk about FIFA. And every time we have an international event, every time we have a situation where we have the Olympic Games or we have international sporting competition, a lot of stuff gets brought up to the forefront. And so we're going to talk about sport as a platform. It's something that we talk about a lot with our athletes. It's something you've probably heard me mention on this show. We talk about sport as a platform and using sport as a platform. And it's quite obvious that we have athletes from just every part of the world wanting to use sport as a platform. And we saw that over the last couple days. And we saw that over the last couple weeks. It doesn't matter if it's professional sport, if it's international sport, we see sport being used as a platform. And so we are going to talk about that topic today on this show. Join us, stay with us after this brief timeout, and we will return and talk about sport as a platform.
Thanks for listening to Faith Family Fitness, a presentation of Full Armor Sports Teams. Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, is now registering for school year sports programs. Full Armor is a multi-sport teaching and training organization with homeschool options available. All of Full Armor sports coaches are certified and experts in their field. Full Armor's coaches combine for over 500 years of coaching experience. They will help your kids gain fundamental skills, the concepts of teamwork, essential to being successful throughout their lives. Multiple sports options are available now, from swimming, softball and volleyball, to powerlifting and youth MMA. The faith-based approach to making sports fun and productive are a great choice for your kids at Full Armor Sports Teams. Learn more at fullarmorsportsteams.com.
Welcome back to 100.7 The Word. This is Faith Family Fitness. Today's topic, sport as a platform. We talk about it a lot. You've heard me say it. And I woke up this morning, I read an article, and it said Iran's protest during the national anthem spits in the face of the European armband controversy. And the story regarding these armbands, regarding what's going on in the World Cup, it was announced that multiple captains of teams across Europe were going to wear these One Love armbands. And FIFA said, no, you're not. And they said, we're going to anyways. And FIFA said, we're going to fine you. And then the captain said, well, we're still going to wear them. The country said, well, we'll pay the fines. And then FIFA came back and said, if you step on the field with the One Love armband, we will give you a yellow card. And it was at that point on Saturday morning that all these captains dropped their idea of wearing this One Love armband. And so it brings back multiple examples of times when we have protests on the field of play in sports. You know, you think back to Colin Kaepernick, you think back to kneeling during the national anthem, you think back to Tim Tebow. All of these things are examples of sport as a platform. And whether or not you think it's right or wrong, or their cause is just or unjust, it doesn't matter. The truth is, when you look at sport, we have to acknowledge the fact that sport is a platform. And athletes are going to use that platform how they see fit. And the governing bodies, they have to make decisions as well. And so we can't really get into this whole idea of freedom of speech. Number one, we're in Qatar for this, or Qatar for this World Cup. So U.S. Constitution doesn't apply. But when we talk about the national anthem stuff, you can bring up constitutionality, but in the workplace, freedom of speech does not exist, right? Sure, you can say whatever you want, but it does not prevent you from getting fired from your job. So, the argument that freedom of speech applies for any of these athletes is kind of null and void. And so the question really becomes, from the NFL, from the MLB, from all these national organizations, whether it be professional, international, or amateur, is if you're going to allow something, to what extent are you going to allow it? And for a long time, these organizations have allowed athletes to voice their concerns over whether it's social justice issues or whatever it is, to a certain degree. And so, we can talk about fairness all day long, and, well, is it fair if the NBA allows this but doesn't allow that? And that's not really the point of what I'm going to try to make today and the show that I'm going to try to make. But we have to acknowledge that fact that, does FIFA have the right to determine what is allowed on the field of play? And the truth is they do. And if you look at the NFL, sure, they have the right to say, no, you can't kneel, or, we're going to send you off the field if you kneel. And they have to make that decision for a variety of different factors. They have to make that decision financially, right? How many people stopped watching the NFL because of those controversies, because of athletes kneeling on the field? I know plenty of people that stopped watching the NFL and have still not returned to the NFL, because of those controversies. And so whether or not you think it's fair, whether or not you think it's right, Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job, Colin Kaepernick, whatever, that's beside the point. The point is that sport is a platform. And so we look at this World Cup, and we look at Iran, and the Iranian players refused to sing their national anthem during their opening game in show of support for the protests going on in Iran. And that sends a huge message that may, to some of us, seem like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's a huge deal in a lot of these countries, especially when you look at a country like Iran. And then you look at the controversy of what happened with these European teams deciding not to wear this armband. And you look at the two differences, and you have to ask the question, and we might not even answer any questions today, but I'll sure leave you thinking at the end of this episode. If you are not willing to get a yellow card for your cause, you don't have a cause. You don't have a cause. At what point is the penalty too much for your cause? And a yellow card doesn't put you out of play. It doesn't send you home. It doesn't put you on a plane back to your country. It's a warning. It's a warning in soccer. So these players aren't willing to get a yellow card warned for this cause. Is it truly a cause? When you look at some of these other players that no longer have jobs in the NFL, in professional sport, because of the cause that they stood for. Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick, all these players. So when you look at this situation, you have to ask the question, at what point is my cause more important than the penalty that's being offered? And it's easy sometimes for us to go, well, in that situation, I would stand by my cause. And this is Faith, Family, Fitness, right? We talk about faith. We talk about what it means to be a Christian athlete. And so at what point does your faith take over that will to compete? At what point is your faith more important than that competition? In a situation like this, it could become quite clear. And before we get on that train of, well, I would never do that, my faith is more important, remember what we did over the last 2.5 years during the COVID crisis. We shut down our churches. We shut down our churches across America, and we did not stand up to the government who was trying to shut down our churches. And so we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep in mind, what does it mean? How important is our faith in this situation when it comes to when the government says you must shut down or no, you cannot worship Jesus Christ? And so these are all very important topics. So I would just make a blanket statement that if your cause is not important enough for you to receive a yellow card, you do not have a cause. And I think that's quite clear. And these players standing up and not singing their national anthem, that is a cause that could very well end in some serious punishment to those players back in their home country. And so it's not a light task that they decided not to sing that national anthem. Sport as a platform is a big platform. It's a world stage. Everybody talks about it. Everybody is going to be talking on Monday morning about what's going on in these sports. And if you don't care about soccer, you don't care about the World Cup, it doesn't matter what sport it is. If you care about any sports, you're going to hear about it on Monday, about what happened the previous weekend, because it will constantly come up in our daily conversation. And if you look back and you look at what happened in the Bible, what happened to these disciples, to Jesus's disciples, 10 of them were martyred. 10 of them were killed for their faith. 10 of them were killed for sharing the word of God. 10 of them. It's not a light task. It's not an easy task. When you have a platform, when you have a cause that you stand for, the results of standing for that cause can be fatal in a lot of situations. And that doesn't mean that we have this situation in our country and across the world right now about tolerance, about what does it mean? What does this word tolerance mean? And back when I got my master's degree, I wrote a paper about tolerance and what tolerance was and the historical portions of tolerance. And I got dinged, and the professor, told me, you can't cherry pick research. There was no cherry picking research. The fact of the matter was the paper I wrote did not line up with his beliefs. It had nothing to do with cherry picking research. It had nothing to do with the paper. It had everything to do with the fact that the word tolerance, the idea of tolerance, did not match what he wanted the word tolerance to mean. And that was a class on basically like global something or other cultures, blah, blah, blah. So tolerance means that basically we don't have to agree with other people, but we can't kill them over it. That's basically the basic definition of what tolerance is when it comes to other people's ideals, other people's beliefs. We don't have to agree with them, but we have to live in the same world as them. And that's a situation that we do not practice well in this country. We don't have to agree with everything. I don't need you to agree with me. You could be listening to the show. You could be like, man, I don't agree with anything that Jason says. That's fine. You could turn off this show. You don't have to listen. Or maybe you're listening because you just want to hear the other side. You can disagree with me, but be tolerant of the fact that I'm allowed my opinion, that we're all allowed our opinion. And that's a critical situation. That's something we have to keep in mind. Now, that doesn't mean that the NFL, that the NBA or whatever can remove players from their position based on that situation. And then it brings up the question, well, should we allow players to use sport as a platform in general in a professional setting? And that's a whole nother leg of this argument, of this debate that we can go down. Should we even use sport as a platform? But the whole world is watching. The whole world is taking note. The country is taking note of what these players are doing. And maybe the conversation has to go all the way back to, should we even have athletes as role models? Should we even see athletes as role models? And I don't necessarily believe that answer is no. I think there's a ton of phenomenal athletes that are role models. But we also have to keep in mind that we cannot place athletes on pedestals. We cannot believe that they are without sin, that they are these perfect creatures. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to misstep. And it doesn't make them any less of a role model. It makes them human. It makes them human. It makes them just like us. And so we have to ride this fine line in some of these debates and some of these arguments, because we're talking about people here. We're talking about people with super strong beliefs. And I think what we see coming out of the political sphere, what we see coming out of a lot of culture and society right now, is that people want to be heard, and people truly believe in their cause, some more than others. And hearing them out, understanding their side of the story, does not mean that we have to change our opinions, that we have to change our beliefs to match. But hearing them out, understanding where they're coming from, is that idea of tolerance, right? Is that idea of trying to take steps forward in the right direction. And so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be talked about. This is not an easy topic of conversation. And like I said earlier, we might not answer a single question on this show. But sometimes you wake up and you get ready to do this show, and you pick up your phone and you see news articles, and you start pivoting. You start pivoting what we're going to talk about, because this is an important topic to talk about. Because it exists in our society. We see it every day. We hear about it. We live it. And we're going to be talking about it at the water cooler at work on Monday morning. And obviously there's a lot more that could potentially happen in the course of this weekend, because we have tons of football, we have tons of sports. So it's only a matter of time before we see more athletes using sport as a platform. And that's something we have to take note of. That's something that I find super interesting, whether or not you believe their cause is just or unjust. We're going to take a brief time out. We're going to come back. We're going to continue this conversation after this quick break.
Thanks for listening to Faith Family Fitness, a presentation of Full Armor sports teams. Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. At Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, a Christ-centered approach to sports fundamentals and fitness has earned his company the respect of athletes and their parents. Full Armor Sports is committed to helping youth in our community experience growth through sports and to strive for improvement and excellence. Further, youth compete as individuals, coming together with a sense of teamwork, camaraderie, and support for one another. At Full Armor Sports, the reality is achievements, failures, wins, and losses eventually fade away. But the bonds team members form through competition evolve into relationships lasting forever. Learn more at fullarmorsports.com.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness on 100.7 The Word. Today's topic, the topic of sport as a platform. We've covered a wide variety of issues. We've covered the Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick, the latest World Cup situations coming out. And we've talked about this conversation as to what does it mean to use sport as a platform? What does it mean to have a cause? And even this idea of tolerance, this idea of understanding other people's viewpoints and understanding that we have to coexist with the fact that there's other viewpoints in our world. And then we have to remember that we are not of this world, that we are living in this world. And we're going to see other viewpoints that we might not agree with. And so whether or not it's right or wrong, what these athletes are standing for, it's important to take note of the fact that some of these athletes have gone to extreme extents to stand by their cause, by their beliefs. And that's the point that I want to write home about, because we have to ask ourselves if our beliefs are strong enough, if we stand by our cause enough to potentially lose a multi-million-dollar career like Tim Tebow did, to potentially lose that spot on a world stage, to potentially lose that opportunity to play at a higher level. Because the situation in this country, in this society, is not going to get easier. It's going to become harder. It's going to become more divisive. Our beliefs have to be strong enough to withstand the other side attacking us, wanting our silence. And so this is a multi-complex issue. This probably won't be the last time we talk about it on this show. This topic of sport as a platform will come up over and over and over again. And I think it's a conversation that coaches should be having with their athletes, that parents should be having with their kids. This is a conversation that should take more of a forefront in our sports, in our youth sports, in our amateur sports, because we see it. Kids look up to athletes. This is a conversation that just has to be had. It's a conversation that has to be on the tip of our tongue, that sport is a platform. And you go on even further and we talk about sports, but you can take this topic and push it on to just about every other industry. Arts and entertainment, comedy, right? Your Instagram influencers. All these people have created a platform for them to share their beliefs, their understandings. And so we focus on sport because that's a passion of mine, but you can extend this topic to just about every other industry and every other industry leaders that have created themselves a platform to talk and that people are listening. And they choose to use that platform sometimes for social causes and other causes. And so we have to learn from that. We have to learn to understand that we have this powerful opportunity as Christians in sports to stand for what is right. And I believe we have not seen enough of that. I believe that we have not seen enough of the Tim Tebows stepping into the world of professional sports. Because if your cause is not worth the penalty, do you truly have a cause? I want to thank you guys for joining us on this show. This is our 15th episode. We just crossed 15,000 downloads of our show online, which is super exciting. We have people tuning in from all across the country listening into this show every single time we post an episode, which is exciting. If you have not already done so, if you want to listen to past episodes, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts, whatever it is, Amazon Music, and you can find our show, Faith, Family, Fitness. Download our show, follow our show, make sure you're up to date with our latest episodes. And if you ever miss any one of our episodes, feel free to go back and grab a listen. If you are in Colorado Springs, if you're in El Paso County, Colorado, listening in on this show, we invite you to support our show by going to fullarmorsportsteams.com. That is the traditional spelling of armor, ARMOUR. And check out our youth sports programs that we offer for kids of all ages, from martial arts to swimming, powerlifting, softball, volleyball. We want to make sure that your kids have a place to play, an environment with loving and caring coaches. And so check us out, fullarmorsportsteams.com. If you want more information on this show, go to faithfamilyfit.org. You can find our latest episodes and more information. And as always, if you have a comment or a question about this show, reach out to us at info@faithfamilyfit.org. We would love to hear your opinions on the topics that we discuss and what is going on in our world. Once again, this is Faith Family Fitness on 100.7 The Word. We hope to see you next Saturday at 9 a.m.
This has been Faith Family Fitness with Coach Jason Lupo of Full Armor Sports Teams of Colorado Springs. Join him at the same time next week for Faith Family Fitness on The Word. 100.7.